Alright, so today we're going to go over integers. Now, in order to do that, we're going to have to go over the following. What are integers? How can we represent integers? How can we apply integers to real-life applications? And what are the common errors with integers? So first, integers can be defined as sets of whole numbers which are positive and negative, and they can also include 0. So, for some examples, could be negative 270, 60, 13, negative 13, or even 1 and 0. So, now that we know what integers are, we can go to how we can represent integers. So, one common way of representing integers can be with a number line. Number lines are very useful because they can show how your adding is represented, and so I'll explain the number line. So you start out at 0, and if you go to the right, you get positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, and so on and so forth. If you go to the left, you get your negative numbers, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and so on and so forth. So, the example I have is, what if you want to add negative 2 to positive 5? So, the way you can explain this with a number line is, you could start at 0 and go over negative 2 spaces. So, you draw your arrow over to negative 2. Now, if you're adding positive 5, that means you're going right 5 units. So you're going to start where you just ended your blue arrow at your negative 2. And with this green arrow, I'm going to go over 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, how can you know from this what negative 2 plus positive 5 is? Well, as you can see that this gap in between your 0 and because of where your negative 2 line was ending, or started, and where your positive 5 line, the green line, was ending, you take that and see what the distance is there. So, as you can see, if you draw a dotted line, that's this space. And from 0 to positive 3 is where you're ending. So positive 3 would be your answer. So negative 2 plus positive 5 is positive 3. Now, as you can notice, to add a positive integer, start at the first number and move to the right, like we just did. If you're adding a negative integer, start at the first number and move to the left. Okay. So, now that we've discussed how we can represent integers, we can now talk about how we can apply integers to real-life applications. So let me put out this. Now, this is a thermometer, and it's something that's used every day when we're talking about the weather. And in order to describe hot temperatures, we use positive numbers. Well, we can use positive numbers for hot temperatures. So the higher numbers tell hotter temperatures. Now, colder temperatures are the lower numbers. So, if it's snowing outside, it could be negative 10 degrees. So that would be used to explain cold temperatures. Where the opposite, if you're looking at a number line, so if we use the one we just looked at, your positive temperatures would go to the right, your negative temperatures would go to the left. Okay, so that's how we can use real-life applications. Next, we are going to discuss common errors with integers. Okay, so a big error that happens when we're adding two negative numbers together. So, I have an example here. So if I have negative $10 in my bank account, I spend another $5 on candy, how much is my total debt? So if we refer back to our number line, if we start at -10 and we're spending another $5, so if we're spending, that means we're decreasing our bank account even more. So we're going to go, and if we're decreasing, then we're going to the left. So we're going to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our arrow will go over 5 units to the left from 10. And as you can see, we wind up at -15. Another way to represent this, if say you're doing it on a test, is, and you don't want to use the number line, is you can just simply add them together. So if you have -$10 and then you're spending another $5, so you're subtracting $5, this is also equal to -15. A way I like to write it to make it look a little less confusing is putting -10 plus your -5, and you come out with still -15. I like putting a positive in because it makes it look a little nicer, and it kind of helps me understand it more. So today what we went over is what integers are, how we can represent integers, and we use the number line, how we can apply integers to real-life applications, and we said thermometer. We could also use sea level. So if you go below sea level, that would be a negative number, because if you're starting at 0, which is your sea level, then if you're decreasing, then that would also be negative. But I think it's easier to understand the thermometer. Lastly, we talked about common errors with integers, which was adding two negative numbers together. So I hope this helped. Thank you.